John's focus was a cold, hard diamond of efficiency, but tonight, the cold was being replaced by a fever of desperation. The failed investment wasn't just money lost. It was a debt to a shadow organization known only as the Syndicate. They had given him a deadline, 2 weeks. The Azure Eye, with its $30 million appraisal, was supposed to be his ticket out of down payment on his freedom dot at 2:17 a.m. The coastal fog was his accomplice, muting the world into shades of gray and offering the perfect thermal disruption. He had been through the Thorne estate security ritual hundreds of times in his mind, rehearsing every sensor drift, every camera tilt. He bypassed the subterranean grid, a system he himself had designed with the knowledge of its single, minute-long failure point during a power cycling sequence. Standing before the vault, the weight of his 3-month obsession pressed down on him. The custom silicone patch worked flawlessly, mimicking Archibald Thorne's palm scan of victory snatched from a discarded high-resolution image of Thorne signing autographs. He reached the numeric code, his first guess, a sequence based on Thorne's wife's birthday. With wrong dot the red light flared, a brief, dangerous pulse. He keyed in the second sequence. Based on a subtle market indicator Thorne obsessed over the closing price of the T-bond market on the day his yacht won a major regatta. The delay was excruciating, the silence punctuated only by the low thrum of his own heartbeat. Click. WHIRRR. The mechanism yielded. The heavy steel door groaned open. The sight of the Azure Eye was intoxicating. It was more than a jewel. It was a legend. He felt the pure, cold platinum against his glove. Then came the sharp vibration in his earpiece. Security alert, West Wing window integrity compromised. Repeating. West Wing window integrity compromised. It was a deliberate, controlled alert, designed to divert attention from the main house. John knew it was staged, but the guards didn't. They would be moving fast. He grabbed the necklace, the velvet bag feeling alien in his hands. He fumbled with the weighted replacement copy. Anxiety, a foreign entity, surged. He had to place the weight perfectly to avoid triggering the internal laser grid, which would sound the immediate, house-wide alarm. The room tilted. The cold, heavy replica slipped from his grasp. It clattered against the stainless steel floor with a distinct, metallic clang. And from the vast, dark expanse of the study, a small, quiet cough echoed, sounding like a gunshot in the paralyzing silence. The study lights flared on, revealing not a security response, but a solitary figure, Mrs. Thorne, in a sapphire silk robe that almost matched the color of the jewel in his hand, lowered her glass of water, her eyes, magnified slightly by her glasses, fixed on him with a disconcerting mixture of assessment and amusement. "You really should have used the silent alarm, John," she said, her voice thin, but cutting. "It's much more subtle. You've given Archibald a great story to tell at the club." John spun toward the door, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Mrs. Thorne, stay where you are," he commanded, his voice tight, betraying the controlled fear. "I am leaving. Do not try to be a hero." "A hero?" She gave a dry, humorless laugh. The sound grated on John's nerves. "I'm just an insomniac who wanted a midnight tonic. You're causing such a fuss, waking up the entire house for a trinket. It's $30 million. John hissed, exasperated by her glacial lack of fear. The irony was palpable. She should be terrified. He should be calm. The reality was reversed. "And you risked decades in a federal penitentiary for it," she retorted, pushing herself up with a cane. Each millimeter of movement was an amplifier of the moment's tension. "Tell me, John, standing here, realizing you might be caught at any second, does it feel worth $30 million, or does it feel like 10 pounds of worthless rock ? She began shuffling toward him. John took a nervous step back, his grip tightening on the bag. "Stop, I swear. I will. You won't hurt me," she interrupted, stopping 5 feet away, her eyes boring into his. "Because you're not a brute, John. You're a puzzle solver. The brute would have used dynamite. You used a frequency modulator. You're too precise to damage a human being." She lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper, forcing John to lean in, neglecting his escape. "That necklace you hold, that is the that runs this house, the real Azure Eye? Archibald sold it 6 years ago to pay off a colossal gambling debt. He didn't want the papers. or me, knowing about. You, John, have stolen a very good $300,000 replica, a prop for his legacy. John felt a sickening chill. The weight in his hand truly did feel like a hollow disappointment. You're lying. It's a trick to get me to drop it. Why would I bother? She challenged. Do you truly believe a $30 million piece of jewelry is left in a house with a pressure plate that could be bypassed by an ** electromagnetic shunt **? Archibald may be arrogant, but he is not stupid. He wants the challenge of his security system to remain intact. You, John, risked your life for a prop. She tapped her cane sharply on the hardwood floor. **, bam, bam, bam. **, the sound came from the end of the hall, a guard pounding on a door, demanding a room check. The sweep was immediate. John had seconds. They're coming, John exclaimed, sweat beading on his forehead. Good, Mrs. Thorne said, perfectly steady. She turned her back to the door, effectively shielding John from the guard's line of sight, though she never touched him. Now, you must decide. Do you run now, clutching that glorified trinket, only to find you stole less than a mid-level manager makes in a year? You'll be a failure, John. A joke. The Syndicate will laugh before they break your fingers. She walked to the antique desk and retrieved the heavy, ornate wooden box. Or do you realize that the most precious thing in this room isn't the necklace, but the ** knowledge * of how to take something truly untouchable? She slammed the box onto the desk. The sound echoed the guard's footsteps, now only yards away. Inside this box, she hissed, her eyes gleaming with genuine excitement, are the blueprints to the ** National Museum of Antiquities vault. ** Archibald's masterpiece, the one he calls the Unbreakable. He used to brag that if God himself wanted it, he'd need a warrant. She pushed the box toward him. You leave the copy, John. You leave the lie. You take the challenge. You use your talent not for cheap theft, but for the impossible. You take this, disappear, and spend the next year figuring out how to do what no one, not Archibald, not the FBI, not history thinks can be done. The light flickered at the end of the hall. A guard's voice echoed. Sir, did you hear a noise in the study? No, I did not, Mrs. Thorne yelled, her voice suddenly booming and irate, directed at the hallway. I am trying to sleep, and your heavy-footed patrols are driving me mad. Get out of this wing now, and check the west wing again. That damn gardener keeps leaving the window latch unsecured. The footsteps hesitated, then retreated under the force of her imperious tone, the guard clearly deciding that an angry Mrs. Thorne was a worse threat than a potential burglar. John was breathing raggedly. He looked at the necklace, then at the box. The choice was a stark dichotomy, cheap mediocrity or dangerous ambition. With sudden, decisive force, John threw the velvet bag containing the necklace back into the open vault. It landed with a soft ** thud **, symbolically closing the door on his past failures. He snatched the heavy wooden box and tucked it inside his specialized coat. He gave Mrs. Thorne a sharp, respectful nod. May I suggest the drainage duct behind the fountain? She whispered, her eyes glowing. It leads directly outside the perimeter, past the kennel. Do not disappoint me, John. John didn't run. He moved with a practiced, low crawl through the manicured hedges, the heavy wooden box thumping softly against his ribs. The dense fog was still his ally. He reached the fountain, his hands scraping against the cold, damp stone. He found the drainage duct, wide enough for a lean man, and slid inside. The air was heavy with the smell of wet earth and algae. The minutes he spent crawling through the dark, cold pipe were the longest of his life. He wasn't thinking about the Syndicate or the money. He was thinking about Mrs. Thorne's challenge. * the unbreakable **. He emerged on the outside of the perimeter fence. Shaking off the mud and grime, he melted into the back streets and disappeared into the pre-dawn city, carrying not wealth, but a blueprint. John returned to his hideout, a rented industrial garage space disguised as a defunct welding shop. It was soundproofed and wired for his unique needs. He didn't sleep. He couldn't. He immediately opened the heavy wooden box. Inside, resting on a bed of frayed silk, were not simple rolled papers, but a series of microfiche plates and a handwritten logbook. Archibald Thorne was not a man for casual blueprints. John installed the microfiche into a vintage reader he kept precisely for such archival materials. The screen glowed, illuminating the face of the challenge, * the National Museum vault. Asterisk, the blueprints were architectural poetry. The vault wasn't just a room. It was a core module built on a seismic dampener that floated on $100 tons of hydraulic fluid. Any external vibration, a jackhammer, a small explosion, even a high-frequency acoustic wave would be absorbed, then distributed across the fluid layer, turning the attempt into nothing more than a minor tremor. The walls were a composite of reinforced concrete, titanium mesh, and a layer of polymerized silica gel. The silica layer was Thorne's signature, a barrier that instantly liquefied under high heat, a torch, and became brittle under extreme cold liquid nitrogen, ensuring that either method of entry caused immediate, catastrophic collapse. Trapping the contents. The door was the masterpiece, a $3-foot-thick composite seal that used a kinetic locking system. The mechanism didn't rely on bolts or tumblers. It used magnetic fields to suspend and align a grid of $1,000 tiny ceramic discs. The correct combination, a $20 digit sequence that changed hourly, created a perfect null field, allowing the discs to align and the door to be slid open. Any incorrect attempt, or any attempt to tamper with the magnetism, would drop the discs into a chaotic mesh, jamming the door permanently and triggering a direct line alert to the National Guard inside. A single layer of security, the Thorne-like grid, not lasers, but a mesh of ultraviolet light capable of sensing airborne particulate matter, temperature change, and even a static electrical charge from synthetic fabrics. It was specifically designed to detect a human presence even if they were wearing non-metallic, thermally neutral camouflage. John spent the next week in a haze of caffeine and obsession. He wasn't just looking at the diagrams. He was trying to understand the mind that created them, the arrogance, the paranoia, the sheer genius of Archibald Thorne. The brute would have used dynamite. You used a frequency modulator, Mrs. Thorne's words echoed. He realized the solution wasn't brute force. It was intellectual surrender, then transformation. He needed to stop thinking like a criminal and start thinking like a security god. The Syndicate was not forgotten. On the 10th day after the heist, a short, heavily muscled man named Vince arrived at John's garage. Vince was not a man for small talk. "You missed the deadline, John," Vince said, his voice grating like sandpaper. He glanced around the sparse, clinical workshop, taking note of the sophisticated diagnostic equipment. "I didn't," John corrected, not looking up from the microfiche reader. He was studying the hydraulic system. "I just exchanged one piece of collateral for a far more valuable one. The Azure Eye is gone, John. The papers are silent. You failed." John finally looked up, his eyes bloodshot, but intensely focused. "I was set up. The necklace was a fake. 300 grand, max. Worthless to me, useless to you." He didn't mention Mrs. Thorne. That was his secret. Vince smiled, a terrifying, emotionless expression. A $30 million prop? That's good theater. But the Syndicate doesn't care about theater. We care about collateral. Since you failed to deliver the necklace, you will deliver something else. Information, your expertise. Vince slid a folded document across the table, a heavily redacted contract detailing the movement of rare earth elements between 3 major international corporations. "We need to know when and where. The next shipment will be routed through the port," Vince explained. "We need to override the security protocols on one specific container. Fail this, you won't have to worry about prison." John knew this was a death sentence. Intervening in Syndicate operations meant he was either successful and became their permanent slave, or he failed and was eliminated. The Azure Eye was a simple theft. This was a war. "I need time," John said, his hand gripping the edge of the table. "You have 1 month," Vince replied, his eyes narrowing. "After that, we'll send someone who appreciates efficiency more than you." Vince left. John was alone again, trapped between the crushing deadline of the Syndicate and the impossible challenge of the museum vault. He saw the irony. To solve his financial debt, he had to risk becoming a tool of a criminal empire. But to earn his freedom, he had to conquer the Unbreakable Fortress. John buried himself in the blueprints. He worked on the Syndicate contract only when necessary, treating it as a distraction from his real obsession. The museum vault became his Everest. He theorized he couldn't nullify the dampener, but he could potentially overload it. If he could introduce a counter frequency that the hydraulics couldn't absorb, the entire chamber might momentarily shift, creating a tiny, momentary flaw in the seal. The chemical composition was unique. Thorne had patented it. John had to synthesize a highly corrosive solvent that would neutralize the polymerization. without creating extreme heat or cold. He needed a Goldilocks chemical, a delicate, impossible balance. This was the true roadblock. The $20 digit code was not guessed. It had to be known. The code was transmitted to the museum via a secure satellite uplink every hour. Based on complex astronomical data, the positions of specific constellations. Archibald, you magnificent bastard, John muttered to the microfiche. You didn't protect it from thieves. You protected it from everyone but astronomers with a supercomputer. The realization dawned on him. He couldn't break the lock. He had to predict the key. He needed to hack the satellite network that generated the hourly code, a feat that rivaled the complexity of the heist itself. He worked for weeks, his world shrinking to the dimensions of the vault schematics. He felt Mrs. Thorne's phantom gaze on him, a silent, expectant pressure. He had relinquished the Azure Eye, accepting the challenge of true mastery. One night, looking at the tiny details of the Sentinel light grid, he saw it, a flaw, a single, almost imperceptible design choice. Thorne had put the UV light sensors in the ceiling and floor, creating a flawless cubic mesh. But to service the lights, a maintenance hatch existed in the eastern wall. It was protected by a simple magnetic plate, sealed to prevent air leaks. If a person could breach the magnetic seal and slide a micro-thin pane of a specific crystal, one that blocked the UV spectrum while allowing thermal transfer, they could create a shadow volume within the light grid, allowing them to bypass the sensor network entirely. It wasn't a flaw in the security. It was a flaw in the maintenance access. It was the back door of the god of security. John felt a surge of exhilaration he hadn't experienced since he was a teenager. Solving his first complex circuit board, he knew he had a chance. The impossible was now merely terrifying. He closed the wooden box, his heart now beating to the rhythm of his ambition. The $300,000 replica was a joke. The $400 million worth of artifacts in the museum vault was the true game. He had chosen the path of the craftsman. He had 1 month to solve the Syndicate's contract and synthesize the solvent, procure the crystal, and crack the astronomical code. The weight of the Azure Eye was gone, replaced by the crushing, exhilarating weight of the Unbreakable Fortress.